Diana, and I'm a girl, so call me girl stuff.
I'm Diane. I'm female. Female pronouns would be great.
Jeannie, female pronouns.
Amanda, female pronouns.
Kate, female pronouns.
Female.
Eric, male pronouns. Jeff, male pronouns.
Amanda, female pronoun.
Liz, female pronouns.
Rochelle, female pronouns.
Cardin, male pronouns.
Eli, male pronouns.
Ellie, female pronouns.
Sasha, female pronouns.
Maxwell, male pronouns.
Amy, no preference.
All right, thank you, everyone. Oh, I'll pass this along too. Any progress, Liz, on your side of things?
No, I'm recording this at least for our own internal use. But
Okay.
this isn't. So I just hope we can start.
You want me to turn it over to Ellie? For now, or wait?
Let's start.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation to come here and speak. I am really honored to have been asked, and so thank you, all of you, for being out here in the cold as well. I have a lot to cover, and one of the things I have here is a newsletter sign up. I have a newsletter that goes out every month called The Ripple. And if you have an interest, please sign up. If you don't have an interest, don't sign up. Don't worry about it. I don't do anything with your name other than put it on constant contact. So, oh, here's a pen. There you go. All right. So, a little bit very quickly about me. I am, my tagline is writer, lawyer, human. And actually, I gave a talk yesterday at St. Joseph's School for Children, and I gave a Trans 101 talk, and somebody actually asked me, why human? And I said, well, because we humans have a tendency to label and group everybody, and lawyer and writer certainly are my own self-described labels, but human pretty much helps to connect with everybody else, okay? So, very, very briefly, because if you get me start talking about myself, I'll never shut up. So, very briefly, I just turned 60.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's traumatic, yes. And
Right.
oh, well,
Yes,
thanks.
Yeah.
And so, when I go and I train, I talk about, there are two phenomenons going on in the world as it relates to trans people. One phenomenon are what I call gender correctors, people who, many, probably a fair number in this room, where you live according to your birth gender for a number of decades, and then at some point you have a moment of truth and you say, screw that, and I've got to live as who I really am, and, you correct. I'm a gender corrector. Then the other camp are what I call our trans youth or our trans kids. And these are the 4, 5, 10, 12-year-olds who are saying, Mommy, I'm not a boy, I'm really a girl, and don't call me Daniel anymore, call me Julie. And so as a gender corrector, I corrected, and I corrected at age 52. And in the process, I pretty much destroyed what was a really great life as a dude. So I married my high school sweetheart. Before it was over, we were together for 32 years. I was a trial lawyer in Cedar Rapids, co-college undergrad, Boston College Law School, 5 years of learning how to be a trial lawyer in Boston, then went back to Cedar Rapids where Lydia and I both grew up, and built this life that was the envy of most people. Lived in a house in the best neighborhood, two beautiful daughters. I usually forget about them. 2 beautiful daughters, a country club membership, 3 cars and a 4-car garage. I had my own law firm, 4 lawyers, 10 support staff, brokerage accounts, money in the bank, family vacations across the country. You get a good picture of it. And when I transitioned, and I fought like hell not to transition, and I'll be happy to talk with anyone who wants to learn more about that. I fought like hell not to transition because I believed that I could choose to stay a boy. I mean, I really, really did. I really loved my wife. really loved her. And it's really hard to leave somebody, as some people I'm sure in this room know, to leave somebody that you love. It's very hard. Because there was no question she wanted a man. She was not gonna go the lesbian by default route. And so I knew that I would lose her. So it was a hell of a fight, a hell of a journey. It was incredibly messy by the time it was over, but I survived. I'm really happy to tell you that. And I eventually, I became the first Iowa lawyer to ever transition genders, at least openly. And within 2 months of transitioning, I tried a lawsuit in a jury case in Cedar Rapids, and I won it. I told the jury that I was trans because of the voice and some other issues associated with the case. And God love the jury. They came back in my client's favor. And I thought that my law firm would survive, but I represented, as it turned out, two of the most LGBTQ-friendly industries in the United States, railroads and trucking companies. That's a joke, okay? That's like, really? That was really bad, okay? And so...
You got a daytime job, right?
So eventually I lost my law firm in Iowa, and I came up here to start all over, blank slate, so where no one would know me. So, yeah, the voice is an issue, but at least I didn't have people who knew me as a man, and they weren't tripping over my boy name, and most of the time people weren't tripping over female pronouns. And I came here with 3 goals, and somewhat incredibly, and I want everybody here to know, I sit here with like 2 70-gallon drums right next to me that are open top, and they're overflowing right now with gratitude, okay? And I'm damn lucky. I'm exceedingly lucky because I did have some resources to be able to do all this. But I came here with 3 goals in the spring of 2010. One goal was to have some surgery, which I did. The second goal was to write a book, which I did, copies of which I brought, you can buy. That was my marketing, okay? And the third goal was to become the executive director of a nonprofit because I didn't want to be a lawyer, a trial lawyer anymore. And damn, if I didn't accomplish all 3 goals. Not having any idea, the first goal I knew was going to be hard and difficult, but I had some idea. The second goal about writing a book, I had no idea about how to write a book. And I had to unlearn how to write like a lawyer and learn how to write like a human, but with some help with the Loft and a bunch of other people, I was able to do that. And then then I had no idea about becoming an executive director because naively I just thought, well, I'll just walk in and get a job, not realizing that they are like the fewest jobs in the world to be able to try and grab. But damn it, I got it. And as it turned out, there was a brand new nonprofit started to help poor people connect with lawyers. They had raised $500,000. So they had $500,000 in the bank or pledged. They had this board constituted. They had the corporate documents all done. They just didn't have an executive director to get it off the ground. And they wanted somebody who knew how to run businesses, which I do. And they wanted somebody who had grit, which I have. And I think they wanted somebody with imagination. And I have that vividly. And so they hired me, much to my surprise, because of the voice, because I would have to raise money. And, not knowing how donors would react. But they hired me, and within 3 years, we won an American Bar Association award for our work. And I just left that job. Literally 2 weeks ago. I'm like, done. And actually, no, the 31st, a week ago. Time is flying now. I'm in retirement. And so now what I do is I've created a company. I've created another business. So this is my 3rd business. I've created a business called Human Inspiration Works, which is a diversity and inclusion consulting company and training company. And it is it's a business that I'm growing. And if you want, ask me when we get our question and answer, I'll tell you more about it. Okay? Enough about me now at this point. And let me just really start now with what really are my remarks. And that is, I'm really thrilled to be here among family. I do a lot of speaking. Almost 99% of it is to cisgender people. Occasionally I get in front of gays and lesbians and some trans, but not often. And so I want to tell you that it feels really great to be among family. And it feels really great to be with people who have had the same struggle that I've had. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for having hung in with that struggle. And some of you may still be struggling right now as we see fit. And in the next half hour-ish, let me help you if you are struggling with some words of hope. And if you aren't struggling, but fear that you may be, given Pence and Trump, let me share some about that as well. So, and so last year I gave, I counted up, I gave 76 talks of one form or another, ranging from 2 people out in South Dakota at Rapid City, but one of whom was from South Dakota Public Radio who interviewed me, and he let the other person get involved with the interview. I thought that was just really great. Ranging from 2 people to probably 200. And every time I speak, and I will do it here tonight, every time I speak, regardless of the audience, I make a standing offer. And that is this, is that I will meet with any human in a public place for up to an hour to talk about anything related to being trans, or a family member who's trans, or being lesbian or gay, or just about surviving the human condition. I tell everybody that. I make that offer. And it's not because I think I'm anybody special, or I have this particularly great skill set. No, it's because I believe that I have an obligation to give back, an obligation to try and do good in the world. I am a student of Dr. King and Robert Kennedy. So as I'm looking around the room, a couple of you maybe were alive when they were alive, but most of you were not. And I was alive, and I vividly remember the days that both of those men were murdered. But before they died, what they said, what they told me, because I lived in New Jersey at the time as a kid, and they were East Coast people-ish, and so what they said to me was, we have an obligation to make this world a better place. It's not voluntary. It's not like if you can find the time. It is an obligation. And more importantly, it's an obligation to speak for those who do not have voices of their own, who are hampered or silenced by our society. And so that's where I come from. That's why I make that standing offer, and I'm making it to you here tonight. And if we can't meet in a public place for an hour, we'll talk over the telephone for an hour. So I just throw that out there. The other thing that I tell people, notwithstanding some of my credentials and what I, have said to you tonight about my experience, the other thing I say is this: I am really no one special. I'm really not. If you really know me, you know that I am pretty darn humble. But what I am is I am a survivor of the human condition. It's just that my survivorship is far more public than for most, because I look like a chick, but I sound like a dude. And many people know something's up when they meet me, although there are 6 women up in Bemidji who believe I smoked 5 packs of cigarettes a day for 20 years, and they're saying that poor Ellie Krug, okay? But everyone in this room, everyone in particularly in this room, you know about surviving the human condition. And so we all have that in common. But frankly, when you go and you meet cis people, or go and you meet, cis and gay or lesbian people, or anybody else on the spectrum, or you go and you meet people of color or marginalized communities, or you go to people who are, frankly, white power structures, white male privileged, please remember that they too are survivors of the human condition. They too have crap going on. They do. It's just that they hide it a hell of a lot better than many of us do. They certainly hide it better than I do. So, having said all of that, what I wanted to do was to come to a little bit and talk about how the landscape is going to change. I don't want to feed fears. I don't want to make anybody neurotic. So if something I say causes you to panic and you got to get up and walk out of the room, feel free to do that. Okay? I'm going to try not to make it that bad. But I want to really talk about how, what's going to happen. And so what we saw with the election was, Van Jones called it white lash. I don't think it was that necessarily. What we saw with the election, I think, was certainly a degree of racism, and the culmination of efforts by the Tea Party to box in Obama and his administration and his agenda. We also saw, I think, the results of a Congress that had just totally shut down, because in order to box Obama, they just didn't do anything. I think the Congress that just ended was the fewest days of Congress ever working, since the 1700s. I mean, it was just, they just totally didn't do anything. And I think that part of it is that we saw the natural progression of manufacturing leaving the heartland, going overseas. Part of what we saw was the aging population, and maybe one last gasp from the boomers in terms of things that they thought were important to them. And to a certain degree, we saw some reaction, I don't know how we can calculate it, some reaction to political correctness and to this, and things like that. Now, I would chalk much of, this up to racism, and I would chalk much of it up to the idea that we needed to be, go back to the good old days, because of course, as I write here in your handout, make America great again. Of course, I'd like to know when it was great, but I go back to my aunt and my uncle. So I've got Aunt Rita and Uncle Rich. I think they're each 71 or 72 years old. And, I go back to them because they live in Connecticut. And on election day, on November 8th, I got on Facebook briefly, and I see that my aunt my aunt, who barely knows anything about Facebook, but had gotten on Facebook and wrote, get off your rump and vote for Trump. And something I never ever really do, but I did. I replied to that, and I said, Aunt Rita, I said, don't you understand that he wants to put in place people who want to take away my rights? And her response back to me was, please respect my decision. I think that he's a good man, and I think that he'll put good people in place who will make sure that all rights are protected. And then what followed were the comments by my aunt's friends, which were very acidic, all right? And now, of course, we know what happened with the election. However, and as I started to say, I would chalk that up to ignorance and some other things, and I still chalk part of it up to ignorance. But you have to understand, when I came out in 2009 and transitioned from boy to girl, and I told at that time my aunt and uncle in their mid-60s that I was transitioning, all that I got from them was 100% acceptance. We love you. Of course, that's fine. Whatever, as long as you're happy, and of course my aunt met me after I transitioned, and her words to me were, I've never seen you so relaxed. I've never seen you so at peace. So they got it. They understood it. And so it's not, this election result isn't nearly, in my view, as black and white. I don't think that we can just sort of draw a line and say, well, this is what it means. I think it means a whole lot of different things. Now, having said that, we know that what Trump, Pence, and it is a really bad combination between the two. We got a crazy man and then a homophobe and a transphobe. What I think is going to happen initially is this. I think that within, there will be some Senate hearings, although the Republicans are trying to orchestrate the Senate hearings so that there's a limited amount of time to ask the various nominees questions. And I just read today that the ethics office for the House was complaining that they did not have ethics questionnaires back from several of the nominees. But once the nominees get appointed, and will they all get appointed? I don't know. But let's assume they do get appointed. Most importantly, for our purposes, I think the question will be this Price guy who's going to go head the Department of Human Services, and then Betsy DeVos, who's going to head the Department of Education. For us, those are the two main players, and both are anti-LGBTQ. So I expect that within a week of DeVos getting in, that she will rescind the guidance that came out in May, the Title IX guidance that came out in May relative to trans access to bathrooms and to locker rooms. That's going to put a lot of school districts in a really hard place, because the school districts, I believe that many of them, not all of them of course, but many of them across the country want to be trans friendly. I think that they want to do the right thing as it relates to trans people. And Title IX, the Title IX guidance gave them cover to do that, okay? People could argue, well, it's guidance, it's not the force of law, but nonetheless, it was a guidance, and they could argue that, this has got some official business related to it. But once it's gone, they're going to lose their cover. And all it's going to take is one or two parents who are going to come into a school, go to a school board meeting and say, you can't do that. You can't put that trans boy into, the boys' locker room, or that trans girl or whatever. And they certainly won't even know the phrases trans boy or trans girl, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And so I think we will lose that guidance. I think that when they change the Affordable Care Act, as in they gut the Affordable Care Act, many of these Republicans are so bent on getting rid of the act so that they can go home and say they got rid of it, okay, that they repealed Obamacare. They're so bent on it, but they're not being very smart, because many of them are not going to focus on what's going to be the replacement. Regardless of whether they come up with a replacement, we're going to lose Section 1557. So for people who don't know, Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act is the non-discrimination clause as it relates to medical providers. So if you follow Gender Justice is a legal nonprofit in St. Paul that advocates for trans rights as well as for women's rights. And they're right now litigating two cases under Section 1557. And they've gotten, direction from the court that the court believes that protects trans people. We're going to lose that, okay? And so we're going to go through 4 years, I believe, of not having any legislation, at least 2 years. I don't know what the congressional elections will do in 2018. We'll have to see. But I think that we're going to lose that, okay? And so what are the consequences of the government essentially taking away things that they have given us? That's, I think, what is really the thing that we have to be focusing on. For me, where I fall is I fall with the youth. I fall with our teens and with our very, early 20-somethings. And I fall with them because they are the ones that are going to feel the worst about this. Because at least as it directly relates to the academic settings, they're the ones who are in schools. So they're the ones who had some protections against bullying. The protections will be taken away, and then they're going to be at the mercy of what an individual school administration will do. And we'll go back to chaos. I mean, we have chaos, but we're going to go back to really bad chaos. And so what I fear as it relates to our youth is I fear that we're going to start losing trans kids. We're going to start losing them. We're going to lose them to suicide. We're going to lose them to depression. We're going to lose them to substance abuse. And because you're going to have the government literally saying to you that you do not matter. You did matter, but now you don't matter. I mean, I think that's even way worse than never having been on the radar ever. You know? I mean, you know, it's the equivalent of telling African Americans, you know, yes, you have the right to vote, but now we're going to take the right to vote away from you. Of course, they're trying to do that with voter ID, but, you know, not so boldly, because we lose the guidance. It's pretty bold. It's like, you don't matter. So, and you know, I'm personally committed to trying to protect our trans youth. I would urge those of you in this room to do a couple of things as it relates to our trans youth. One is, because I'm going to assume that many of you in this room, you know, one way or another, come in contact with trans youth. And so I'm going to urge you to do a couple of things as we go forward. One is, I'm going to urge you to talk to allies and tell them that they have to watch out for our trans youth. And our, you know, and I, broad brush here, but our lesbian and our gay and our bisexual, the poor bisexuals, they never get any attention. I'm bi, so, and I don't get any dates. But I would urge you to make sure that you talk to our allies so that they are paying attention for our trans youth. And the second thing I would urge that you do is that you take it upon yourself. You take it upon yourself to protect them. And how do we protect our trans youth? One way. Time. That you give them of yourself, of your time, to be with them. That means you tell them, you can call me 24/7. You have license to do that. I don't tell many people that. In fact, I like, don't call me after 9, I'm old, I'm in bed, okay? But there's a select number of 4 or 5, 6 people in my life. You've got license, 24 hours a day you can call me. So I would suggest you do something like that. But you make the time to be with them, to sit with them, to counsel them. And I'm going to talk here about grit and resiliency, and I'll give you some tools about things that you can say to them. But I think that's incredibly important because they will know that you are suffering as well, and we will. All of us will suffer. I will suffer. You know, I mean, you're going to take away. I mean, I've had bad experiences with medical providers. You're going to take away my protection. You know, you're going to do that, okay? So I'll suffer that way, you know? And there'll be fewer states where I can go to the restroom legally, you know, because we will also see a spate of bathroom bills. We'll see again in Minnesota, we're going to see another bathroom bill. We're good until 18 because there's absolutely no way that Dayton will ever, you know, sign one of those bills. And I'm pretty certain, notwithstanding that the Republicans have both the House and the Senate in Minnesota, I can't believe that they're garner the votes to override a Dayton veto for something like that. But nonetheless, there'll be other states where there'll be bills, and there'll be more states that'll be on that list where we have to worry about whether we go and visit those states. Okay. All right. Okay. On my notes here, I've got remind them about the fact that half the country voted for Trump and Pence. Okay? So, you know, yes, I mean, we can get into the fact that Hillary's got almost 3 million more popular votes. But as we look at the, you know, the whole scheme of it, okay, we've got half the country that really wants to go in some different direction. And I think that there, as I said at the beginning, I think that racism is part of it. But I really think, because I sat with my aunt and my uncle afterwards at a Denny's restaurant. I was out in Connecticut shortly after the election. I sat with them at a Denny's restaurant because, God, I didn't want to try and do it at their house. I pulled out my journal and I said, will you tell me, why did you vote for Trump? Why? You know, and what I got from them, and I've got actually copies of my notes here, what I got from them was that it was about chaos. That they see the world as a place that's very chaotic. You know, that we're not respected across the world. You've got ISIS going on. You know, you've got China encroaching on us. You know, the Mexicans are coming up. And so their whole view was chaos, and they thought that Trump could bring order to the chaos. Now, if that's the case, okay, and if it's not so much about homophobia, racism, and all of that other stuff, I think that there's hope for us. Because if we can, in some way, demonstrate to them that with Trump the chaos is going to get worse, not better, then maybe they might consider some other alternative that might be able to bring other order. The problem is the Dems do not have any good leaders that are going to be able to step up, at least immediately, to be the candidate to bring order to the world. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, God love her, maybe, okay? You know, Cory Booker, possibly, but he's a black man, and we're not going to elect another black man for a long time. We just won't. It's just not going to happen. It'll happen someday, but not for a while. Okay, so now I've laid out the landscape. I want to tell you what I'm doing so that maybe, you know, glean what you can from that, okay? So I transitioned, as I said, in 2009. And, you know, in the middle of running a law practice down in Iowa, I was involved in leadership for a LGBT group in Iowa City. And I started getting requests, just tell us what it's like to, you know, to go from boy to girl. What's it like to transition? You know, middle-aged, you know, now at 60, but we'll stick with middle-aged, okay, woman, all right? And I get up to the mic and I say, good morning. And then I can watch eyes popping, you know, and people go, you know, and I say right out of the beginning, I say, and now you know why we're going to talk about grouping and labeling. Because you had me grouped and labeled as this, you know, woman, and you're now hearing my voice. And what this reaction that you're having is your fight or flight response that's kicking in because you don't know what box to put me in. Because your ear is telling you to put me in the man box, but your eye is telling you, no, you can't do that. And so you're in confusion. So I'm a really good presenter to do gray area thinking. The second component of gray area thinking, after we talk about grouping and labeling, and then tribalism, is the identity game, which is where literally before the talk begins, I put up, I think I'm up to 14 or 15 signs: age, race, gender, socioeconomic class, religion, alone, not good enough / failure, LGBTQ status. And I get everybody in the room to stand up. And I read a series of prompts, and I ask them to go stand by the sign that's most responsive to the prompt. So the very first prompt is an easy one. The identity that was most important to my parents about me as I was growing up was, you know, and in Minnesota and Iowa, you see these people go to religion or to education, okay? But it gets progressively more difficult. So we get to the prompt of, you know, the identity that I get the most privilege from, the identity that I feel most discriminated on the basis of. I'm not saying it correctly, but you get the idea. And then we get to the prompt, the identity that I struggle with the most on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to tell you, about 3 months ago, I had a contract to train the state of Iowa on diversity and inclusivity. And we played this game, the identity game, down in Des Moines. And I had 160 judges, including Supreme Court justices from across the state, in the room. And I got to the prompt, the identity that I struggle with the most on a day-to-day basis. And I watched as 1 and 2 and 5 and 10 and 20. I watched as eventually 40 judges stood under the sign, not good enough / failure. It was powerful. This is the pinnacle, the top of the pyramid as it relates to the legal world. And they don't feel like they're any good. They feel like they're failures. Imagine what the other people in the room were thinking as they saw that. Okay? So the third component of gray area thinking is a video that I show of a bus driver named Darnell Barton, a Buffalo, New York bus driver, who saves a woman from committing suicide. You actually watch it on the screen unfold, because the bus was equipped with a wide-angle lens camera, and the woman was going to jump off of a bridge. You watch him pull up next to the woman, open the doors, and say, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She was on a bridge over an expressway, so think of Chicago Avenue over I-94, with her back to the railing, so there was nothing separating her from the roadway down below. And then you go and we watch Darnell actually go over to the woman and grab her, and come back and then sit with her and comfort her, put his arm around her. It is an exceedingly powerful video. And what that does is that allows me to talk about gray area thinking tool set. And if just, we're not going to dwell on it, but on the second page of your handout here, there are 3 elements of gray area thinking, which is awareness of human vulnerability, risk-taking to alleviate or lessen that vulnerability, and then the third element is acting with compassion and kindness. And so, so my training on diversity and inclusion is to be able to give people a tool set when they walk away. I don't know if you've gone through diversity training, but much of the time that teaches us about how biased we are. And at the end, the trainer says, "Go try harder not to be biased. Try harder." Well, screw that. I want to give you a tool set. So that's what gray area thinking is. And then the last component of my gray area thinking training is about talking about inclusivity and allyship. And you also have here on the handout about 4 commonalities. I talk with. So one of the things I try and do with audiences. And by the way, I use when I talk about using my voice at the beginning of gray area thinking, what I'm doing is an old lawyer's trick, which is making lemonade out of lemons. That's really what it is. And what I try and do with audiences is get them to understand that even though I'm different, even though I've got this thing going with the voice versus the appearance, that I am just like them. That I am really, just literally, just like them. And so we talk about the 4 commonalities. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know, Diane, I've talked with you once on the phone, but I don't know anyone else in this room. I mean, I know, we've all here for a particular purpose, but I know 4 things about everyone in this room. I know that everyone in this room wants their children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews or the kid of their best friend to succeed. I know that. Second thing is, I know everyone in this room wants to be free of physical and emotional violence. Third thing, I know everyone in this room wants 20 minutes of peace. We are all old enough to know we're not going to get 100% peace. That may come in the last maybe 5 minutes, maybe the last 500 breaths when we say, "Okay, I'm ready, take me." Maybe we'll have 100% peace. I hope I get the chance to find that out. But I know before that, everyone in this room wants 20 minutes to sit out on the patio, drinking their favorite beverage, or if you're a college student, smoking their favorite substance, watching the sun go down, with somebody in the back, without somebody in the background saying, "Hey, honey, where is the?" Okay, I know, we all want that. And last but not least, everyone in this room wants to love and be loved. And that goes true for cisgender, straight people, goes for gays or lesbians, goes for whatever label or category we want to put people in. And if we can remember that, we have the ability to have a conversation with anyone, regardless. Hey, you got kids?
Mhm.
Yeah, how many you got?
1
1, boy or girl?
girl,
Girl, I've got 2 girls. How old's your girl?
33.
33. Okay, mine are still in their 20s. See, we just started a conversation. And what did we do when we did that? We started to become familiar with each other. And I'm just going to tell you here, okay? I'm just going to tell you. If you take nothing else away from this talk, well, please take away what I said about protecting our trans kids. But if there's nothing else you take away, it is this. It is the power of familiarity. When we become familiar with people, we become closer to them. It allows us to open doors. Familiarity is what allows us to form communities. You have formed a community here on the basis of familiarity. And so I think it's exceedingly powerful. So that's gray area thinking. So I just got done last year in 15. I put together an impact report because I've been in the nonprofit world for 5 years, and I realized that it's great to do good work, but if you don't talk about the good work that you've done, no one knows that you've done it, and it takes away from your impact. And remember, I talked about King and Kennedy. For me, everything that I do is about impact. It is, and while there are things that I've done and people are like, well, geez, you've accomplished a great deal, it's not at all about ego. Not at all. I am a really humble person, and actually I've had people telling me I have to get over that. But it is about impact. So last year I did my impact report yesterday for 2016. I did 76 presentations, as I said. I think I did 5 or 6 radio interviews. I did several TV interviews. I started a newsletter, and thank you for signing up for it. That started with about 240 people in July, and we're up to now about 850 people. What else have I done? So I write for Lavender Magazine. I write for Lavender every month about what it means to survive life as a trans person. Sometimes I'm on a soapbox talking about trans rights. Other times I'm talking about riding my bicycle, okay? Because it gives me peace. What else do I do? I show up. And by that I mean, people ask me, will you come and do this? Will you be here for this? Can I call you? I'm a mentor at this point to 2 law students last year, one right now, and to about 10 people, give or take, degrees of mentorship. I am a big sister to an 11-year-old biracial girl. We have been big and little for 4 years. So I'm watching this kid go from this size to this size, and I'm watching her attitude go from this size to this size. Let me just tell you, okay? And actually, I just saw her this afternoon. I just came back from hearing about how bad her mom is. And so, but I'm having the ability to help shape a child who, by the way, is exceedingly bright. So she is in 6th grade. She's got to be reading at 10th grade level. And the message she is getting from home and from her community is that she's stupid and that she's ugly. It is horrible. And sometimes I feel like I'm the only stable thing in her life that she can rely on. But I do that because I care about her, and it's about having impact, and it's because Dr. King and Robert Kennedy said that we have to do things. And as I've said, I've written a book. I've also have this thing called the C-STARred Project, with C standing for Courageous Conversations About Diversity and Inclusion in the Greater Midwest. And so what I do is I go to communities and I talk to them about how they can make their communities more welcoming. And I've done a C Project talk in Albert Lea and one in Alexandria. And both times we've had about 30 people there, and they've gotten all fired up. I have a tool set for how to make their communities more welcoming. But what I haven't gotten is I have not gotten the power people to go to those meetings. So I haven't had like the mayor or the city council or the Human Rights Commission of either town. Anybody from the local Human Rights Commission come. So I'm working on how to change that. I'm also not afraid to actually be a pain in the butt. Okay? And so I've created a 10-point plan for how to change the diversity and inclusion landscape in greater Minnesota. And with some very novel ideas, I have a goal, and it's as crazy a goal as you've ever heard, but I have a goal that every Minnesotan will have received basic diversity and inclusion training by the year 2022. Every Minnesotan, that it will be a requirement. You know, now we got the big bad government. I can see what the Republicans will say about that, but that we have to do that. So you're going to go get a license from the city. You want to get a license to open a business or to have a liquor license, you got to go through D&I training. Why? Because you're going to be serving the public. And if you're going to serve the public, you need to know how to do it with people who are all different. So, C project we've got going on. As I said, I've written a book. And now, beginning tomorrow, I'm launching a radio show on AM 950. So, which you get here in Anoka, okay? I think it reaches 43 homes. But it has podcasts, okay? The name of the show is Hidden Edges. It'll be on it tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It's pre-taped at this point, so tomorrow is already done, and it's a talk about me transitioning. What's it like to go from being a boy to a girl? And, you know, generally about going from a position of privilege to one where we know we don't have privilege, okay? And so, and then next week we'll be talking about the 4 commonalities that I just talked about, and then we'll go on, and I'm going to start interviewing people. So here's the deal. If you tune into the radio show and it's abysmal, tune in about another month, okay? Because hopefully I will get my radio legs a little bit better. And this is totally new. And I'll tell you, I was really not crazy about doing a radio show, in part because I'm so busy. And the work that I love is doing what I'm doing right now, is talking to humans, being in front of them. But I got to tell you, 4:30 in the morning on November 9th, when I woke up and I checked my phone and I saw CNN said Trump wins, I was damn happy I had a radio show coming up. Let me just tell you. So I've got that going. And so that's me, okay? Now I want to talk a little bit about grit and resiliency, and I'm very cognizant of time, and I want to make sure that I'm good here. Are we good? Okay, all right. So let's talk about grit and resiliency. You know, I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm just going to go out on a limb and just say, I bet everybody in this room, at one point or another, on their journey, whether they've completed it or whether they're still on it or whatever, I'm just going to bet that you've beaten the hell out of yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm going to bet that many of you in this room hated yourself. I'm going to bet you had other people hating you as well. I'll just do it. How many people here have lost someone as a result of being who they are? Raise your hand. Okay. And we all know we're not talking about who died, right? Okay. And so for a long time, many of us have already been experiencing what it is to come with Trump and Pence, with disapproval, with being marginalized. We've marginalized ourselves. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that we forget that we've gone through that. We get to these points where, I mean, you know, I'm pretty good. So usually when I give my talks, I start out with, a talk with a joke, which is I say, yeah, you just heard my big bio, but I just got to tell you, I'm not an expert. Then I'm usually looking over at my sponsor, and my sponsor's jaw is kind of dropping, like, we're paying you a lot of money to come here, and now you're telling me you're not an expert. And I say, yes, it's true. I've had 17 years of therapy. It's also true that it's been with 8 or 9 or 10 different therapists, so many that I lost count. And both of those facts are true, what I just said, okay? And then I go on and say, and it's also true that as a result of all that therapy, with all of those therapists, I automatically qualify to be a therapist in 22 states and 3 Canadian provinces. And so, I say that, and usually the audiences laugh, but sometimes they don't. And when they don't, I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a really bad talk. It's going to be long. And here's the point, though, okay? We know, first of all, how to survive. We have been doing it all of our lives. And I want to remind you about that because you have the tool of survivability already built in. And with that tool comes two other things. Grit. Trans people have among the best grit I have ever witnessed in any other human. Because we know what it's like to go from here to frickin' here in a very visible way to society. And we do it, and we do it many times. It's messy, but by the time we're done, it's with a lot of grace. And so we know how to hang in. And the other thing is, we are exceedingly resilient. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I have had many moments. You know, I have a suicide scale. Okay, I have a 1 to 5 suicide scale, and I got to 4.85. I mean, I had it. You know, I had it all planned out. After one particularly bad night, I was ready. But I said to myself, I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to sleep. And if I wake up in the morning and I feel this crappy, we'll go to 5. But if I don't, we're all right. Well, luckily I was able to fall asleep, and luckily I woke up and I felt better. Not a whole lot better, but I felt better. But what that did was that built my resiliency. That built me up. That allowed me to know, okay, you can go this far and you can still survive. Everyone in this room, all of you in this room, you have that kind of elasticity in you. Please remember this. Remember this in April. Remember this in June, okay? When the shit is coming down, okay? But, and while the tendency may be to run to booze or to drugs or to run to other addictions or to run to depression, I would urge you to just run to yourself, to the things that you already have that are here, they're in the table. If we had the time to go around the room and give everybody 15 minutes about how did you survive, what tricks or tools did you do, and I would offer maybe you should do that some night, okay? You know, we would all learn. We would all learn from each other that we each have that resiliency and grit. You know, we're also very used to pushing ourselves, and we're very used to doing a lot of hard work. Cisgender people, they have no idea. They really, I mean, they can tell us that they have an idea, but I'm sorry, they don't have a complete idea of what it means to have your head telling you that it ain't matching your body and that you got to do something about it. Okay? And so, if they don't have any idea of what we've experienced, don't let them set the agenda for you on what's acceptable or not for you in your life. It's that simple. Okay. You've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to develop alliances. Okay? So, as you're building, all right, I would urge you to reach out to the immigrant community, to reach out to the African American community, even though that may be difficult because of some cultural issues. Reach out to the Latino community. I would urge you to reach out to all other marginalized communities and build alliances about protection. And I would tell you, and I'm going to demand this of all of you, that you never allow yourselves to offer anyone up. Don't to appease the evildoers. Do not offer up anyone, you know, and it'll be easy. I mean, we'll be able to draw some lines, and the evildoers will do that for us. So it'll be I think the trans people are going to be among the first to get offered up, but I'll come back to that in a second. But it could be the people of, you know, I mean, right now, there'll be no doubt there'll be a call to offer up the Muslims. You know, and the offering will be, well, we're not going to do anything bad, but we want to have some registry. Or we want to do something that's Muslim focused, but Muslim phobic and all of that stuff. Okay? Resist that. You have to resist it. You can't just say, well, I'll go along with that and everything else will be okay, because that's not the way it works. It's appeasement. Appeasement does not work. And so the only way that they are going to win in the long term is if they fracture our alliances and they start separating us out and they start picking us off one at a time. And back to us, because we will be among the first groups to be offered up. We will. I saw, and maybe some of you did, I saw feeds on social media afterwards that we were the reason that Hillary didn't get elected. That it came down to political correctness and this bathroom bill thing, but for her being so clear that she supported us, she would have won. And you know what? The people will believe that because the margins in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio were so narrow, okay? And so it's not that far from there to, okay, we'll pass a civil rights bill because I believe that ultimately the Chamber of Commerce, it ain't going to be the Dems, it ain't going to be the Republicans, it's going to be the Chamber of Commerce. It's going to want a civil rights bill because right now employers can't put people in cities and states where they need to put them for their employment because lesbians and gays and trans people are saying, I ain't going to North Carolina, fuck you, you know? Sorry, I just had to say that. And so, you know, and so I think the Chamber of Commerce will come up, but it could be for gays, lesbians, and bisexuals, but not the trans, just like happened in 2007. So just be aware of that, okay? So don't allow yourself to offer anybody up. And then watch out for normalization, okay? We're starting to see it already. I mean, the stuff that Trump says that was so incredible at the beginning is now normal. Remember, when he started to run, the idea of a wall to keep out the Mexicans, remember, they were the rapists and the, you know, and the child killers and all of that kind of stuff. Well, now, I mean, we're talking how we're going to fund the wall. We've normalized that. There's other stuff that will be normalized. Resist the normalization. Okay. Other things that you can do. Has everybody heard of Indivisible? Okay, so write this down. You want to Google the Indivisible Guide. INDIVISIBLE. This is a practical guide for resisting the Trump agenda. And what this guide is, this is a bunch of congressional staffers who got together and wrote down how the Tea Party took down Obama. And the Tea Party is very successful, okay? Because look at what they've done, all right, with this election. And so what they have done is they've listed a how to do manual on how to take down Trump, copying Tea Party methodology. And it is practical. It is like I found out about this on Rachel Maddow. If you're not watching Rachel Maddow, I'm sorry. You got to watch Rachel Maddow, okay? She is like got our backs. It's my goal in life. I will have arrived when I'm on the Rachel Maddow show, but that's a whole other talk. Okay, but she talked about this, and she had shown 3 women out in like South Dakota who'd gone to their congressman's office to deliver like letters and some other things, and then they did a selfie or they did a video chat or whatever on live FaceTime, whatever. I need help with social media. But at any rate, she had those women, she was running their video on national TV. And it was 3 women who got all of this impact just by going to a congressperson's office and just showing up with some stuff. That's what this is about. They took that out of this playbook on how to do that. Okay? So get this. It's 26 pages. Download it. And I'm going to tell you, go and organize indivisible groups. That's what they want. They want us to organize indivisible groups so that we can start a grassroots movement to resist Trump and Pence, okay? And we all are aware, right? We lose Trump, it doesn't do us any good. It may even be worse.
Double
may-
assassination. Don't.
It may.
I said that out loud.
No, we don't do that. But it may even be worse. So,
I was like, oops,
Okay.
did I say that out loud?
all right. So, a couple of other things, and I'll shut up, and then I'll be happy to talk with you, okay? Hopefully, almost an hour in, you have a sense that I'm passionate. Hopefully, you have a sense that I want to change this frickin' world. Okay? And hopefully you have a sense that I bring some credentials in order to do that. I mean, I'm talking at Medtronic to, I don't know, a couple, 300 people this week. So, and for many people, I'm the first trans person they've ever met or they've ever talked about. And let me just tell you, I think that that's incredibly important. Not that it's Ellie Krug, but it's about the impression that we make with cisgender people. You know, if they walk away thinking, oh, she's kind of just like us, that gets us much farther than if they walk away saying, what was that all about? Are you with me? Okay. So you know I'm passionate. Here's what I need. I need your help. I do. I need your help. I need you to help get me from this platform here to this one up here. And I'm a big fan of The Current. All right, I'm always listening to Current, and they're always talking about this band that we just discovered last week, you know? And, you know, I've fallen in love with a band called Joseph, which, you know, a year ago didn't exist, but now it's, you know, because it's been discovered, all right? I think they've been playing for 8 years, but, you know. Well, I feel like a rock band that's just not being discovered. I'm doing all these gigs in all these small little clubs, okay? But in order for me to have impact, like the maximum impact, to share my words about King and Kennedy, like I've said, I've got to be up here. And it's not about ego. Please understand that. I am not asking you to help me feed my ego. I'm not. That 17 years worth of therapy was true, and I've done a real good job about dealing with ego through that, okay? So here's what you can do for me. Friend me on Facebook, please. When I post something on Facebook, please share it. Join me on Twitter. So what do we call it? Do we call that connecting on Twitter? I don't know. Follow me. Yes, there you go. Follow me on Twitter, okay? And all my contact stuff is on this sheet.
I have a question about Facebook.
Yes.
I'm on there right now. Is a picture of you, the cover photo is at Riverland College?
Yes, that's me. Yep. Ellen Krug. Yep. So I go by Ellen Krug. Pardon?
Did you speak at Riverland?
I did.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was the Sea Project.
Oh.
So for, you know, it's in Albert Lee or close to Albert Lee. So follow me on, and when I share something on Facebook, share it with your networks. Twitter, I do something, send it out and share it in your networks, okay? Then the third thing that you can do, please talk about me. All of you have employers, or many of you do, or you have social organizations or whatever. Offer me up as a speaker, okay? Now, I've got to tell you, I got to make a living. So sometimes I charge, but this is my third talk in 2017 and I haven't charged yet, okay? And so that's fine, you know, and I do pro bono work and that's important as well. But I've got to get in front of audiences. I've got to be able to speak to people. And the only way, so in some businesses, you can go to a website like, oh, we're going to buy that widget. That looks like a good widget. It's what we want. In the speaking business, it doesn't work that way. It's word of mouth. It's either you've got to have heard me and you're going to go back to your organization and you're the one who helps organize the speakers, or you got to be the best friend of somebody else who trusts you and you say, you got to have her come and speak. Okay? So I need that kind of help. And then lastly, two last things. One is, if you have not seen the movie Hidden Figures, which I just saw today, which I just saw and cried at about 4 hours ago, go see it. Because it is a needle this big, filled with hope, that you will get shot into your arm. At the movie today, there were at least 4 or 5 different places in the movie where the audience spontaneously broke out into applause. You will cry and you will walk away and you will say, that's what our country's all about. Okay? So go see that. And then lastly, thank you, Ellie. Lastly, okay? Lastly, go online and either watch or read Michelle Obama's last speech as First Lady, which she gave yesterday. And I'm going to read an excerpt from that right now. So she was speaking to a group of counselors, high school counselors and college counselors, and apparently it was for the 2017 Counselor of the Year award, but they've created, and I had not known this in 2014, they had created a group called, I think, Reach High, about helping to focus more on post-secondary education, about how to get into college easier, and particularly for marginalized communities. Okay? But here's in part what she said. And I leave you with this. So that's my final message to young people as First Lady. It is simple. I want our young people to know that they matter, that they belong. So don't be afraid. You hear me, young people. Don't be afraid. Be focused. Be determined. Be hopeful. Be empowered. Empower yourselves with a good education. Then get out there and use that education to build a country worthy of your boundless promise. Lead by example with hope. Never fear. And know that I will be with you, rooting for you, and working to support you for the rest of my life. That is what we need to do. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions or banter with you on anything you want. Ciao.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everyone, the floor is open for a little while. So
Sorry.
ask the most important questions first. No, I was kidding. Ask whatever questions you have first.
And I'm an open book. You can ask me anything.
Just wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
I found you by a coworker that was actually in the military, that you gave a speech on military lawyers just recently.
Yeah.
And the first thing she did Monday morning is when she came in, she emailed me and says, "You've got to look this person up," because the whole time she was thinking of me.
Oh, good.
And that's how I connected with you. From there, it went right to an email to you, and then we've been communicating ever since. So like you said, the word of mouth, and I am definitely going to share this at work. I know the HR and people, the VP of HR is very much for us. And the company, I work for Neil Fisk, and they're on 169 and 610, and they are very, very much for us. So
Great.
I'll see what I can do to get you at the company level.
Great. Well, and on the handout, there's at the last page, there's all kinds of contact, including my website, Human Inspiration Works, which has a listing of all the work that we do.
So I can pass this out to
Yeah.
my HR person
Sure.
and at work, so that way. if they want to
Yeah,
use
I
that-
don't, well,
No,
yes,
but
but I've got the word evildoer in here,
Oh,
okay? And I can
okay.
imagine that some Trump people would read that and they would be, and the reason evildoer is there because it's us girls, we're boys, okay? So I
How
guess
about
I
if
would,
How about if I just, I'll share that you're, just some of the things that.
Yeah, that's
this could
fine.
be.
yeah, I mean,
I'll modify it quite a bit.
okay,
So,
that's
Thank
fine.
you very much.
Oh, sure, sure.
And yes, I'm too, struggling in my marriage now. 36 years.
I'm sorry.
I see us slowly departing. And it's real tough, like you said, when you start seeing all the signs, even though they've been there, I try to ignore them. And it's harder and harder to, where you see her slowly stepping away, going to the store without you, where she'd normally ask you to go, not wanting to go out to dinner.
Well, let me, and my response to that is, when I was writing my book, when I was
Just-
getting to Ellen,
Okay, thank
when
you.
I was writing the book, so this would have been in 2011-ish, 12-ish, I learned something that I hadn't realized when I transitioned, and that was the difference between loss and regret. Because when I was a boy, and a man, but I just always use the phrase boy, When I was a boy, if I had caused myself a loss, I would, of course, regret that. Oh my God, who in the world would ever invite a loss? But now I've learned, no, they're actually two different things. Loss, and I certainly do not want to trivialize what you're going through. And believe me, the marriage that I had with my wife was one of those rock star marriages. It was just, she was my soulmate. But what I've learned is that loss fades over time. It does. We're humans and we adapt and we get, we can move on. It's not easy, but we do, and it gets easier and easier as we go on. It fades. But regret, on the other hand, burns hotter as you go on. People who lay on their deathbeds, who regret that they didn't live their lives authentically. That was my fear. That's why I transitioned, because I could actually see what my deathbed would be and what I would be thinking. And so, that's the only thing I would say in response to that. I mean, we can't choose who we are. I am the poster child for choice. I tried. I did. And I just got to tell you, with what I had going on, if I couldn't stay a boy, it's just, you can't choose it. It's just who we are. Other questions or thoughts?
Interesting point about regret and 2009, and I think 2009, that's the year that you said, in transition. Back then, I think I was full of regret about, or not filled with it, because there were some highlights in my life, but there were definitely, there's definitely that aspect of my life. It's like, I regret the corner that I backed myself into, as to gender. But everybody expects me to occupy these male spaces in an evangelical church, environment or sphere. I think I was, at that time, way back in the shadows, like in terms of where I wanted to be. And so, I guess that marked maybe, years. 2017, maybe years, 12 to, 22 or 13 to 22, the 22-year plan that I'm on, and finally, getting to transition and following through with it. But, felt regrets now. I feel lost now because I am also, recently separated from my wife of 11 years.
Oh, sorry.
We've, lost that sort of intimacy and that friendship, that bond that exists under one roof. But, I'm happy to say even, that's, minor shaped loss, because we're still friends, we're still co-parenting, and I feel a lot less for that. So, for what it's worth, there's been a progression in my life over the past 8 years. It just, seems to resonate.
I mean, for me, it was coming to the point of understanding that I had to love myself more than I loved anybody else. I was raised Catholic. Do I need to say anything more? I wasn't kidding about the number of therapists, and I actually did find a therapist, finally, who beat the crap out of me, who really beat the crap out of me, and, who made me understand that I had to love me more than I loved anyone. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't survive. Yes.
Okay, I'll go. I don't know how it would tie in, but with loss and regret, I found in my experience that in order not to experience regret, I had to experience loss. I had to lose my relationship with my sisters so I could get over here to better take care of myself. I had to lose the closeness of my brothers to not have regret to be expressed who I was. And basically, I just want to say that sometimes you have to experience loss in order not to experience regret, because, like you said, regret will eat at you. It will destroy you, and you don't want to be afraid to experience the loss as hard and painful as it will be in some scenarios, because regret is a lot worse.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, regret, loss. I remember around 2007, it was after 4th of July weekend when I, after having talked with HR and my boss and everything, said, well, you know, after the 4th of July weekend, I'm coming back to US Bank in girl mode. And I remember walking into the building that day, thinking, well, there goes white male privilege. And all I can say is, oh, thank God. It is terrifically freeing, because white male privilege is terrifically constraining. And I haven't looked back. Really, you think you're giving something up, and really you're not. You're giving up your shackles.
Well, I don't miss the testosterone, that's for sure.
There's a few things on that. Is one of my hardest things in transition is giving up the male privilege. And people look at me like I was kind of nuts, and I says, people, especially the younger people, really forget a lot. They forget the hardships that women had to endure. You know, I mean, it was okay for your husband to rape you and beat you until 1978 because it's your life duty to please your husband. You know, it was okay. Women couldn't open a checking account or savings account until 73. It wasn't that long ago. Without some, you know, your husband or your mom, your dad or a male figure stepping in to do that for you. There's some countries women can't drive. Right. Even today. You know, it wasn't that long ago women couldn't vote. You know, to give up some of those things, and you start talking about the good old days, and I go, should we go back to those? You know, and people look at you like, what? And I said, well, you voted for Trump. I'm just asking, you know, is it okay, for your husband to dominate you? So some of that was like that. The other thing I was going to say is I'm really impressed with your speech because this group knows more than anyone. You kept me quiet for a long time. I'm normally the person that talks a lot. The bathroom issue. I did see something today I kind of liked on Facebook. It was why laws forcing trans males to use the female bathroom make women suffer. Here's a guy, trans male. I don't know if you really can see that, but anyway, he's a pretty good muscled guy. And now he's boldly walking into the women's bathroom saying, I'm a woman. Because he didn't do his legal name change yet.
Oh, God.
And gender change, So it's like, now, this is what it's going to be like.
Right. Bigotry is not very well thought out.
You know, they don't really think the steps through. Are you really going to want to? It's either that or like the HR person says if they made the bathroom law and they had to follow it. Our gal in HR, she just says, well, what I would do is wait for a weekend and have some people come in. I would take out the urinals, put in a couple more stalls, take down the signs, and just put one up that says restroom. Because there's no law about that.
Wish my work had a.
You know, I mean, so now you got the sitters and the splashers. You know, and that's going to upset people too. So they really didn't think this bathroom thing out a whole lot.
Right. Well, yeah, we know it's way more than about bathrooms, so.
Right.
You had a question?
It was more of just a comment that, and it doesn't really have much to do with what we're talking about, but I just want to let you know that when I was looking for a lawyer at one point, and I saw Melissa Hoteling.
Yes.
And then I saw, and I was just trying to look at some information, and I saw that she had done a mock court thing with you. I thought, okay, that's what I'm going with.
Oh, wow. And she's a good choice. She's a really nice person and a good lawyer. So, oh, well, that's great. Thank you for letting me know that. Any other thoughts or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
So you're putting your focus in other places. Do you still practice law?
No, nope, I'm done doing that. So when I closed out working as the executive director for Call for Justice. That was the last legal advice that I will be giving. So I may talk to Gender Justice about coming in and doing some specialized trial work for them, but we'll have to see. I may go down the road of trying to be an expert witness in trans-related cases. So we'll see about that too. I don't know. But my days of representing people and going into court I think for the most part are over. This work here, I was speaking to somebody the other day who's involved in doing expert work, and she was telling me she's involved with bullying and harassment in schools, and she said, I go through a whole list of all these cases I testified in and have had impact in the world, and there is the chance to have that kind of impact. But for me, what I really want to do is I want to be on the granular level. I want to be talking to just people, and I want to be able to change their minds about trans people or about inclusivity generally, about how we group and label people on the basis of color or socioeconomic class or how they look or whatever. Because I think that work is more impactful in the long run. And I just hope that I can do it. I mean, I've got, I think maybe 10 good years left, maybe. Hopefully the body will hold out. And I want to get here. I at least want to give it the best shot I can. Oh, thanks.
No, how much is your book?
Oh, how much is my book? Oh, sorry, $20. That includes the tax. I take checks and cash, and I've got credit card thing too. So.
Do you have
extra with you?
Pardon me?
Do you have extra?
I do. I brought like 7 or 8. Yeah. And I'll inscribe them even.
I'll take one.
Okay.
He'll take one too.
Take one.
Okay, great. Okay, cool.
I'll take it. I'll get
I'll be able to pay the light
share
bill.
a book. How about that? We'll share a book.
All right. Well, before we break into the capitalist part, anybody have any other questions or thoughts?
I just have a comment. I'm glad you're on our side. You're the right person at the right time. I think you're going to really have success because you have the right message.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a comment. First off, I want to say you look wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
And the second thing is I want to thank you for all the work that you are doing and continuing to do on the behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
I have a question for you. I was just wondering, what do you feel, what are your feelings on what has brought like this kind of backlash and everything towards the trans community? I mean, it seemed like for a lot of years it was going in the right direction.
I think it's about money. If you really want to know, it's about money. So what you'll see for all of these bathroom bills is that there is like the family council or some variant of the family council that's involved in pushing the agenda for those bathroom bills. And what they are doing is they are using the bathroom bills as a call to arms and a call to membership and a call for money. So every time a bathroom bill is going on, if you do this, I mean, has anybody ever gone to the Family Council website here in Minnesota? Okay, Family Council, Google it. Okay, these are people, you should know what they're doing. And so you'll see, we need to protect our little girls in bathrooms. Sign here, join our organization, and by the way, give us $50. And so I really think, in the end, that's really what this is about. Of course, there's also the religious component. We're tinkering with God's gift. How dare we? That it's not, that it's really a choice. We can fix you if we just give you our love, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I really think it's about membership building and money. So. Okay, well, listen, thank you, everyone. I'll sign some books, and I'll conclude the capitalist part of the program. So thanks.
One more thing, thank you everyone for coming today. It was
Sure.
nice
I
to
gotta
see
get
a
my
lot of
phone.
Yeah,
faces.
no, you're good, you're good, you're good.
Okay.
A lot of people who I haven't really seen here before very much. Thank you again, Ellie, for
Do you
coming.
want me to sign your book?
We're gonna do that later.
Okay.
And Ellie, just thank you
Sorry.
for coming.
Thank you.
And we definitely want to get your name out there. Don't forget about us as well. If you know anyone who's struggling and needs a place to go, please give out our information so that we can help each other out
I'll do that.
in the future. Okay?
I'll do that.
Okay.
I would have Facebooked about you tonight, but it's I want to be cognizant of privacy, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So.
So thank you, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We're
So
back on
you wanna
track in
describe book?
2017.
What
And
is your
thanks
name?
for everyone who joined us online.
EL
I know that three of you
ELI?
joined,
Okay.
and thanks for joining. Sorry for the technical issues that we started with.
All right. Now we're officially done.
It's a wrap, it's on the can.
No, like for mine, like I just started teaching or whatever.
Oh wow, good for you.
Thank you. And like I have to like hide it, like kind of, because like of my parents, because my parents are like, I don't know how to like. How do you say? How do you?
They're just very not excited.
But I still, I'm looking